All right, what's up? So, been working on getting everything finished. Got me a little teardrop exhaust tip, cut a hole in the fender. Went ahead, wrapped it. Not the best job. The sensor made it a little bit harder, but pretty happy with it. Centered up pretty good. A little bit of gap there. So, it looks pretty good. Still got to get the wastegate exhaust, but not making any boost right now. So the wastegate's not opening, so that don't matter. So got to start getting the intercooler and piping done. It's got to happen pretty soon. But drove it around a couple of times and had a huge oil leak start from the rear cover. Kept chasing around. I thought it was coming from this sensor, the camshaft position sensor. I pulled it out and it had oil up above the O-ring, so I was like, oh, that's what it's got to be. So put new O-rings on it, bought a new sensor. This is the one that was in it. It's got a brand new sensor in it now. Bought a new sensor, and still just oil above the O-ring, oil above the ring. So I went with just a little bit bigger one. Actually, I used a stock one and put a smaller one right up under it to make this one tighter, and still did it. No matter what, just pouring oil above this O-ring. It was just, every time you'd pull it out, there'd be a puddle of oil right here. I was like, man, what is it? So I didn't want to do it, but I pulled the transmission out and I was like, it's gotta be the rear cover, right? So the only thing I could think is maybe it was leaking in this area right here, and that's where that sensor is. It's in there, if you can see when you move it and everything, you can see that. So I was like, maybe it's, maybe the cover's just leaking right there and it's filling that up, and then it starts to leak. Because I had oil leaks, everywhere. It was not on this engine, but the one that's in there, of course. But it was getting bad. It got worse and worse and worse and worse. I was like, man, whatever. So I pulled it apart. When I pulled it apart, I pulled the rear cover off, and that gasket was hard as a rock. The rubber parts on it were just chip. Like, felt like he was just crunching up chips. It was just hard as a rock. So I was like, all right, that's definitely what the problem is. So changed the rear cover, put it back on, put a little silicone bottom of the pan, just make sure it wasn't leaking from there. Centered it up, put it on there, tightened everything down, threw it back on there. I had went and took it for a test drive, been sitting here idling and everything, and I have no oil leaks anymore. So that sensor was kind of, throwing me off, but before you could look at the bottom of the pan right there at the edge of it, and it was just always had drops on it, and you can even see like some old oil leak where it was sitting, and just, it was pouring out. And now I just got done idling it and letting it warm up, and it's good. So the only other oil leak I do have that I know of is the front seal. Not even a leak, it just like gets a little bit damp below it. So I'll probably change the front seal, one day. It's not even making a spot. Like, you can just feel after you run it for an hour or so, there's a little residue of oil, but that don't bother me as much as it just pouring oil out the rear. But yeah, I could have swore it was coming from the O-ring, just the way. That's the first thing I checked, because when you got leaks on the back, that's one of the easiest things to check. Just pop this dude out. If you got oil above it, then yeah, it's just coming up. But pretty sure I got to doing some research, and I don't think there's an oil passage that goes with that. They just, whatever slings off the cam, can you get up there? So this was pressurized oil, so it was coming, comes down the block, goes through the filter and comes up, tees off, goes to the pressure sensor, and then it actually goes through the rear cover to go to the oil galleys, to go to the front and run through the lifters. Well, what was happening is, when it would make that pass through, it was just pouring oil into the top of these, and probably at multiple places. It just got worse and worse and worse. Probably from me thinking it was from the rear pan, and I tightened these bolts up and probably pulled it and cracked it even more. So yeah, if y'all are having trouble with oil leaks from your, you think it's from that sensor. It could be the sensor, but if it's pouring oil, it's probably from the rear cover, rear main seal. Mine was, I knew it wasn't rear main seal on mine because it was coming down and I could see it running down, like when it gets that lip of the rear main seal, it running down the side, and it was a headache. But yeah, this morning I went ahead and wrapped the exhaust, and I used water to make it more pliable, and then I just put some heat in it and to harden it up, so it should stay pretty good. The other one stayed pretty good, so it's just a headache now of when you touch your forearms to it or something, you'll get that fiberglass feeling, but it does cut down on heat a lot in the engine bay. So, and heat kills horsepower, so something I always do on that. But these eBay headers are starting to like rusting, but they're like clear coated. I don't know. Like, just fucking eBay. What are you gonna do? So yeah, kind of what I've been doing. Gotta get the cold side done now, and we can make some boosts. I went and did a lunch. Took my brother for a ride. We put a passenger seat. My son's got a gaming chair that sits on the floor. I threw it over there, and we went and did a trans brake lunch, and I launched about 3,000 RPM, and I was thinking it was, just spinning and smoking the tire, but it was like hooked up, and it was gone. It felt like it was. I was like, man, we're gonna go back, and there's gonna be black marks, all the way down the road, because I rode it out pretty far, and it didn't leave any. I know it's got some wheel speed when it comes off the brake, because I got the shocks pretty tight, so it wouldn't. I don't want it to dead hook right now. I want it to have some wheel speed until I start working, through the suspension and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna start getting the cold side done. I'm ready to start making some hits. I'll probably make some hits like it sits right now to figure out the suspension. Never worked with ladder bars and stuff like that, so been watching Big Chief stuff on ladder bars and how to set up a car, and I want to put some plumb bogs on it and square everything up, but I'm scared if I do that I might find a world of problems, so I might just run it like it is. And it needs new rear shocks and needs new front shocks or coilovers. I know it needs shocks, and I have some lowering springs I put in it when I first got it, so it's 2-inch lowering springs, which it does sit like a 1/4 inch higher on this side. So I know it's not in the springs because they were identical, and I'll probably just have to cut this one down a little bit to get it to sit right when everything's done on it. Unfortunately, all the weight went on this side, so that didn't help. I wish this side would have set higher, and it probably would have been about right. But I think I like where it sits. It would give it a lot of travel, which it has these just straight upward control arms. I'd like the, I don't know who makes them, but they got the little hump in them. They kind of mimic the stock ones. So you get, around 6 to 7 inches of travel, which this one has pretty decent amount of travel because it's got the extended ball joint. Because it's got an inch longer ball joint, so it does have pretty decent travel. So we'll see. We'll start making some hits on it. Naturally aspirated. I want to get the exhaust done so I can do that. And I got to figure out a way to fasten the hood. But yeah, just kind of an update. But the only thing I've done is finish the exhaust, wrapped it, and then fix that oil leak. Which I was gonna make a video on that oil leak, but it's one of them things I was just so frustrated I couldn't even bring the phone out. I just wanted to get the transmission out and get it fixed. And I don't know if anybody else hates transmission fluid as much as I do, but where the cooler is, the transmission cooler, when I undid the lines, it was just pouring, and I didn't really have nothing to block it off. So right after that, I ordered some plugs and caps for them lines, so the next time I pull that transmission out, it won't leak as much. But where I had the jack stands and everything, I just couldn't get nothing under it, and it was just one of them things. But yeah, pretty happy. It's not leaking oil. Gotta get a catch can, get the cold side done, wastegate, and then the boost controller. And we should be making some hits on boost gonna make hits naturally aspirated. I'm gonna go piss off my neighbors here in a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of what I've been doing. About to go cut grass. Grass is tall, so I'll catch y'all later. Thanks for watching.